The galaxy had always known the kill quota as the most feared trial among the stars, and it was not a test of skill alone, but of survival itself, and of patience, and of unbroken. Well, because in the arena nothing waited but endless predators and merciless rules, and the eyes of countless worlds, watching from the safety of their hulls and ships and stations. For ages the quota had been the mark of a people's worth, and every rising species that dreamed of joining the great council of civilizations had been forced to face it, and to last inside its endless hunting grounds until the board reached the numbers set by the ancients, and only then would they be seen as strong enough to claim a seat among the old powers. Many species had tried, and many had failed, and some had taken decades to even reach the number required, because the predators did not rest, and the arena never slept, and one night inside was said to feel like a lifetime of terror and screams, and endless running through shadows that held teeth and claws. The Varric had taken 20 years before they cleared their quota, and their bodies had been left broken and scarred forever, but the council had cheered because survival alone had meant greatness, and the Varric had earned their place though the price had been cruel. The Dravek had taken 9 years, and their songs still told of the rivers of blood that covered their kin, and of the 1,000 nights of fire they had endured before the counter on the wall had finally turned to completion, and only then had their torment ended. And now it was the turn of a species no one respected yet, and no one feared, and that species was called human, and most of the elder races mocked when the name was announced, because their worlds had never seen humans face such trials, and no legend spoke of their wars, and no one believed they would even last the first week. The chamber of the council was filled with laughter when the announcement came, and voices spoke in the old tongue, saying, "The humans will break the first night, the humans will run from the shadows, the humans will be torn apart before they even light their first fire." And others nodded and agreed, and called them fragile and soft. Yet when the gates of the arena began to rise, the laughter fell quiet, because from the darkness a line of human figures stepped forward, and their eyes were hard, and their movements were steady, and their voices did not shake, and though their weapons looked simple, they carried them with a strange confidence. The arena itself was alive with shifting terrain, and trees taller than towers, and rivers that ran red under the moons, and caves that had eyes in the dark, and the moment the gates opened the predators within stirred, and the ground itself seemed to tremble with hunger, and yet the humans did not slow, and they did not wait. The council leaned forward in silence as the first minutes passed, because most species would already be running or screaming or firing blindly into the trees, but the humans did not panic. They formed lines, they watched the shadows, they spoke in short, clear words, and their movements were not those of prey, but of hunters. The scoreboard lit up above the arena, and the number 0 glared across the galaxy, and every spectator waited for the first drop of blood to mark the humans' end, because this was how it had always been, and no species had ever escaped the first night without loss, and no species had ever begun the quota without fear. But these humans did not bow their heads, and they did not shake, and the way they walked told of something different, something older than the arena itself, something born from endless struggles on a distant blue world where survival had been written in every breath. The predators moved in the distance, and their howls echoed through the night air, and even the walls of the council chamber seemed to shiver, but the humans only looked toward the sound and raised their weapons, and their voices did not cry out in terror, but in command and in unity. For the first time in countless trials, the council felt an unfamiliar weight settle in their chests, because the humans did not look like prey, and they did not act like victims, and when the shadows shifted closer, there was no retreat in their steps, only the steady patience of beings who had come not to survive, but to conquer. And so the first night began, and the galaxy leaned in to watch and to whisper, and to wonder if perhaps the age of the quota was about to change forever. Because the humans were here, and the board still showed 0, and yet already the predators of the arena were no longer hunting with confidence, but with caution and hesitation. And the council began to feel a fear they had never known before. The second gate closed behind the humans, and the sound echoed across the endless arena, and it was as if the very ground shook with warning and with hunger, for the arena itself was alive and always changing, and the walls of stone and steel that rose around it were not simple walls, but machines built by the ancients who had designed this place to test and to punish and to reveal what no one wanted to face. The trees stretched high above the humans, and their leaves glowed faintly with the light of distant suns, and the rivers that cut across the land shone red and silver under the moons, and every ripple spoke of teeth hidden beneath the water, and every shadow carried the promise of claws, waiting to tear flesh apart, and the humans stepped forward into this nightmare, without turning back, and without fear. The council chamber that watched from far above grew silent again as screens displayed the humans' movements, and every elder species leaned closer to see how these strange beings would act, because the first hours were always the most brutal, and most challengers were already dying by this time, and yet these humans were steady, and their eyes were sharp, and their voices calm, and the very way they walked made the predators hesitate. The arena was not a single space, but many realms woven together by machines and by cruel design. For one corner was a desert that burned with endless sun and shifting dunes, while another was a frozen plain where storms howled without end, and another was a tangled jungle where the air itself was poison and every breath was war. And yet the humans faced all of this as if they had prepared all their lives. The predators began to stir in the distance, and their shapes moved through the trees, and their growls rolled like thunder across the jungle floor, and the watchers in the chamber leaned back, expecting the usual panic, the usual screams, the usual chaos. But what they saw was different, because the humans did not scatter like frightened prey, but moved into formation like soldiers who had done this 1,000 times before. One human raised a hand, and the rest crouched low, and their weapons were lifted not in desperation, but in patience and in readiness, and the council could hear their words through the speakers, and though the language was strange, it was calm and clear, and filled with something the other species rarely showed inside the arena, and that something was control. The first predator broke from the trees, a massive beast covered in scales like armor, and with jaws that had crushed champions of other races, and its roar made the walls of the arena shake, and dust fell from the branches. But the humans did not scream, and they did not run. They spread out and circled the beast, as if they had been waiting for it. The cameras showed every detail, and the galaxy gasped as the humans acted with speed and purpose, because one drew the beast forward, while another struck from the side, and another climbed a tree, and leapt down onto its back, and in moments the monster that had ended so many lives lay broken on the ground, and the scoreboard lit with the first number of the human quota. The silence that followed was deep and heavy, because never before had the first predator fallen so fast, and never before had the chamber been filled with such disbelief. And still the humans did not stop to celebrate. They only checked each other, and then moved deeper into the forest, as if the battle had been nothing more than a simple task. Night fell across the arena, and the moons cast pale light through the trees, and the predators grew bolder in the darkness. But the humans lit fires and sharpened blades, and built traps with their hands and their strange tools, and when the beasts came to strike, they found walls of flame and pits of sharpened wood and eyes that glowed with defiance. The council watched in silence and in fear as hours passed, and the bodies of predators piled high, and still the humans moved without hesitation and without despair. And when dawn came, the scoreboard showed numbers that other species had taken years to reach, and the whispers in the chamber grew darker. Some whispered that the humans were unnatural, and some whispered that they were dangerous, and others whispered that the council had made a mistake by allowing them to enter the quota, because what they saw was not prey learning to survive, but hunters turning the arena into their own battlefield. The humans did not rest, and as the day rose they pushed deeper into the heart of the arena, where greater monsters waited, and the terrain itself twisted against them, and yet each challenge that appeared only seemed to sharpen their will and strengthen their unity, and they pressed forward like a storm. Predators began to hesitate before attacking, and for the first time in countless trials the watchers saw beasts retreat into the shadows rather than strike, and even the machines that controlled the arena seemed to falter as if confused by what they faced, because the quota had never been meant to end so quickly. And yet already it was slipping toward completion. The humans did not know fear, and they did not know hesitation, and as the day ended again, they stood around their fires, with the scoreboard glowing high above them, and the galaxy that had laughed now fell into silence and dread. The arena had awakened with hunger and fury, but the humans had awakened with something greater, and the council felt the truth in their bones, though none dared speak it yet. The quota had always been the test of prey, but now it had found hunters, and the galaxy would never be the same again. The dawn rose over the arena, with a light that seemed pale and weak, as if even the suns feared what had entered this place, and the ground was still wet with the blood of the beasts that had already fallen to the strange new hunters, and the scoreboard glowed with numbers that no one could believe, because such progress had never been seen in so short a time. And yet the humans stood without fear, and without exhaustion, their eyes bright, and their bodies ready for what came next. The council chamber was tense and silent, and though no one spoke aloud, the whispers in every mind were the same. How could these beings move so fast? How could they kill with such ease? How could they face the night and come out stronger instead of broken? And the oldest voices in the chamber remembered times long past, when predators were not beasts of the arena, but whole races rising with fire in their hearts, and now they feared they saw it again in the humans. The arena stirred as if it too had noticed the difference, and deep within the jungle shadows a roar rolled out, one that shook the very air and carried across the rivers and mountains, and the watchers knew at once what it meant, because the predator that now approached was not common and not simple. It was the beast that had ended more challengers than any other, the monster that had haunted every survivor's memory, the one that had made even the bravest fall silent. The creature broke through the trees, and it towered above the humans, its scales black like iron, its mouth filled with jagged teeth, dripping with venom, and its eyes glowing with a hunger that had no end. And many in the chamber leaned back, for they remembered what it had done before, and they expected at last to see the humans torn apart like all others who had faced it. But the humans did not run, and they did not freeze. They spread out across the clearing with speed and precision, and their leader raised a hand, and their formation shifted like water flowing into shape. And though their weapons were simple, they were held with confidence, and though their armor was light, their steps carried the weight of something ancient, something forged in wars of their own. The beast roared again and charged, and the ground shook like thunder, and the council chamber filled with the sound of cracking branches and falling trees as it came. And yet the humans did not scatter and did not scream. Instead, one broke away to the left, drawing the beast's gaze. Another climbed a tree. In seconds, moving faster than eyes could follow, another dropped low into the brush, preparing something unseen, and together they moved like a single mind. The first strike came from above as the human who had climbed leapt down, landing on the beast's back and driving a blade between the scales, and though the creature bellowed in fury, it turned and left its side open. And in that instant another human hurled fire into its face, and smoke rose like black storms, and the beast reeled blind and enraged. The crowd watching gasped, for never before had this monster been wounded so quickly and so deliberately. And as the beast thrashed, the humans pressed the attack, one after another, circling, striking, retreating, drawing it deeper into their trap, until the ground itself gave way to a pit lined with sharpened stakes that they had prepared during the night, without any pause or fear. The monster fell, and its roar echoed across the arena, and for a moment the world seemed to hold its breath, and then silence came, and the scoreboard above them flashed, and the number leapt forward, marking the humans' first true kill. The chamber of the council did not cheer, and did not clap. It sat heavy with unease, because the humans were not supposed to last. They were not supposed to fight like this. They were not supposed to laugh when blood sprayed across their faces, and yet that was what happened, because the humans stood over the fallen beast, and some of them smiled, as if they had been waiting for this moment all their lives. The galaxy had expected tears and fear, and instead it saw joy and unity, and the predators of the arena sensed it too, for their howls were different now, less certain, more cautious, and some did not emerge from their dens at all, choosing to wait in silence, as if even they understood that hunters unlike any before had entered their world. The scoreboard glowed brighter with every passing hour as the humans pushed deeper, and the numbers climbed with terrifying speed, and where other species had taken years, the humans achieved in days, for each kill was not a desperate strike for survival, but a planned hunt carried out with ruthless patience and strange, clever tricks, and soon the arena itself seemed to hesitate, shifting slower than before, as if unsure of how to stop them. The humans built traps from branches and stones. They lured beasts into rivers and drowned them. They lit fires that drove predators into narrow paths where their weapons waited, and every act was done together, without chaos, without despair, and the council members, who had once mocked them, now whispered in quiet fear that this trial was no trial at all for these beings it was training. The galaxy remembered the first kill of every race, because it always marked the point when prey became something else, But the humans had changed the meaning of that moment, because they had not only survived the predator, they had destroyed it with laughter and unity, and with eyes that still searched for the next target. The elders began to argue in hushed tones behind the silence of the chamber, some saying the humans must be stopped before they reached completion, others saying it was too late already, because what they had seen could not be forgotten, and the young species that had been mocked hours before was now the most dangerous of all. The humans did not know the weight of the fear rising in the chamber, and they did not care. Their steps pressed on through jungle and desert, and ice, their voices calm and steady, their weapons sharp and ready, and every predator that came before them fell faster than the last, and the scoreboard climbed like fire racing across dry wood. And though the galaxy tried to believe that perhaps the humans would slow, perhaps they would tire, perhaps they would fall, the truth was plain in the eyes of every watcher, because the humans were not here to endure, they were here to conquer, and the first kill was only the beginning. The arena had thought itself eternal and undefeatable, but now the balance had shifted, and every shadow seemed to whisper the same truth: the hunters had come, and the age of prey was over. The arena had always been a place where challengers became prey, and predators ruled the dark corners and the hidden paths. But with the arrival of the humans, the pattern began to change, and the council that had laughed now sat in uneasy silence, because the hunters of the arena were no longer chasing the humans. It was the humans who now hunted them. The forest floor was covered in mist as the second night descended, and the predators stirred in the shadows, their glowing eyes moving between the trees, and their bodies coiled for attack. But they hesitated, because the scent in the air was not the scent of prey, it was the scent of danger, and even the oldest beasts could sense the shift. The humans lit fires that glowed in the darkness, and they placed them not only for light, but as markers and signals and traps, because each flame was part of a larger plan, and when the predators moved closer, they found their paths blocked and their flanks exposed, and the humans were waiting with blades and fire ready. The council chamber filled with whispers and unease as they watched the feeds from the arena, because the humans were not scattered or broken, but united and clever, and the arena itself seemed smaller, now not endless as before, but a hunting ground shaped by human minds and human hands. One predator leapt from the branches above, its claws gleaming in the firelight, but a net woven from vines caught it midair and pulled it down into sharpened stakes below, and another beast rushed from the river, its jaws wide with hunger, but the humans had lured it into shallows lined with hidden spikes, and its roar ended in silence as the waters closed red around it. The scoreboard climbed higher with every moment, and the numbers glowed like burning stars across the sky of the arena, and the galaxy that watched began to murmur in fear, because what they saw was not survival, but domination, and no species before had ever turned the trial into something so deliberate and controlled. The predators were not simple creatures. They were born from designs older than most civilizations, and they adapted to every challenger. But against the humans, even their adaptation faltered, because every strike they made was countered, every hunt turned back on them, and soon the predators themselves began to retreat into the depths of the jungle, unwilling to face the hunters, who walked like shadows, with eyes that gleamed with fire. The humans whispered to each other in calm voices, and their language, though strange, carried meaning that was clear in their movements, because when one spoke the others moved as if the thought was shared, and when one acted the rest followed without question, and their unity was like nothing the council had ever seen. Night deepened, and the sounds of the arena shifted from the howls of predators to the silence of forests holding their breath, and the humans moved through it like ghosts, their fires behind them marking traps, their steps silent, their eyes bright. And when a beast tried to circle them, it found itself surrounded, and when another tried to strike from below, it was dragged out and ended with steel and fire. The council leaned forward, and their faces were pale with unease, because they knew the meaning of this change. The quota had never been meant for hunters. It had been meant for prey, to prove they could endure, and yet the humans had twisted it into something else entirely, and no one knew what would happen if they finished so quickly. The scoreboard now held numbers that should have taken years, and the humans had done it in days, and the crowd that once mocked them was silent, for silence was the only answer to fear, and fear now filled every hall and chamber and ship where the trial was being watched. One elder rose and spoke of ending the trial early, calling it dangerous, but another said it was already too late, because the truth had been shown across the galaxy, and none could deny what they had seen, and still the humans pressed forward deeper into the heart of the arena, where the final predators waited. The humans built walls of branches and stone, they sharpened spears from fallen trees, they coated them with poison drawn from the very beasts they killed, and when the predators came they were cut down faster than ever before, and the humans left their bodies as warnings to others who might try, and soon the predators no longer rushed into their traps, but circled in hesitation, their hunger drowned by fear. The council could feel in their bones that the age of the quota was breaking, and the humans were the hammer and the anvil at once, and the question was no longer if they would finish, but what would come after, and that thought filled the elders with dread. In the arena the humans sat by their fires at dawn, and their faces were calm and strong, and some laughed softly at the night gone by, and others sharpened their blades, and spoke of the next hunt, and none showed despair, none showed weakness, and it was as if the arena was not a prison, but their own chosen ground. The predators that once ruled the night now hid from the day, and even the machines that shaped the arena seemed confused, their traps and storms and shifting lands unable to slow the humans, who adapted faster and struck harder than any design could counter, and the watchers began to murmur that perhaps the quota itself had met its end. And as the sun rose over the bloodstained forest, and the scoreboard glowed brighter than ever, the council chamber remained in silence, for every elder and every witness knew the truth, though none dared say it aloud. The humans had reversed the hunt forever, and the galaxy would never forget the night the predators became the prey. The scoreboard glowed brighter than ever, and the numbers that once took whole civilizations years to reach were now flashing upward in only a handful of days, and the arena that had devoured countless challengers now trembled under the steady march of the humans, who carried themselves not as victims, but as masters, and every eye across the galaxy could see that something was wrong with the balance that had lasted for ages. The humans moved through jungle and desert and frozen plain with the same calm determination, and every step they took seemed to echo with inevitability, because they were not guessing, and they were not scrambling, they were planning and executing with precision and patience, and every predator that came against them fell faster than the last, until even the fiercest of the beasts refused to charge blindly. The council chamber was heavy with silence as the elders sat around the great circle, their faces pale and grim, because they knew the truth rising before them. The trial that had once measured survival had been turned into a demonstration of power, and the galaxy could not unsee it, and whispers filled the corners of the chamber, saying that the humans were not being tested, they were revealing themselves. The predators of the arena had always been merciless and relentless, but now their strikes faltered, because the humans built traps that turned speed against strength, and walls that redirected fury into weakness, and every roar was met with fire, and every charge was broken with patience. And when dawn came again, the scoreboard was nearing completion at a pace no elder could have imagined. The watchers spoke in fearful tones, saying that the humans should have been exhausted, yet they grew sharper with each hunt, saying that the humans should have been broken, yet they seemed whole, saying that the humans should have died like all others, yet they thrived, as if the arena was no more than practice for something greater. The breaking point came when the predators stopped attacking altogether, and for the first time in all the long history of the quota, the beasts of the arena lingered in the shadows, refusing to face the humans directly, and even the machines that controlled the storms and the shifting lands seemed to hesitate, because their chaos no longer slowed the hunters, who adapted faster than storms could change. The humans noticed, and they did not wait. They carried their weapons into the deepest regions, where the final predators lay hidden, and they hunted without pause, because to them the quota was no burden, it was a task to be finished, and finished quickly. And the way they moved told the galaxy that this was not a struggle for survival, it was a declaration of what they were. The council elders argued in harsh whispers, some saying the trial should be ended before the final predator was reached, others saying that to end it now would show weakness, and still others saying that it did not matter, for the humans had already proven more than any number on the board could prove, and fear spread through every hall where the trial was watched. The humans pushed deeper into the arena, and the land itself seemed to fight them with earthquakes and storms and floods designed by ancient machines to crush any challenger, but the humans crossed them with unity, and with strange courage, their bodies bruised and cut, but their spirits burning brighter, and the arena itself seemed to bend before their will. The predators began to retreat farther into the heart of the arena, and the humans followed without hesitation, their laughter echoing between the broken trees, and their eyes locked on the hunt, and the scoreboard flashing higher and higher, until it was almost complete, and the chamber of the council felt the dread settle like chains around their throats. Because the breaking point was not only in the arena, it was in the hearts of those who watched, who realized that the quota was no longer a measure of worth. It was a warning to the galaxy that hunters unlike any seen before had risen, and they did not break under fear, and they did not bend under pain, and they did not stop when the world itself turned against them. The final days of the trial became something the galaxy would never forget, because the predators that once ruled with terror now cowered in silence, and the humans hunted them one by one, and their voices carried through the trees like thunder, calling to each other with calm commands and steady laughter, and the beasts died quickly, and the scoreboard number soared. The arena tried one last time to crush them with storms of fire and walls of collapsing stone, but the humans moved through it as if they had known storms and ruin all their lives, and their eyes glowed with determination, and their hands struck with precision. And when the fires cleared and the dust fell, the humans still stood unbroken and still pressing forward. The council knew then that the trial had failed not the humans, for they had passed beyond it, but the quota itself, because it was never designed to hold hunters like these, and the breaking point was reached when the scoreboard was one mark away from completion, and the galaxy realized that nothing could stop them now. The humans gathered around their fires on the final night, before the last predator was to come, and they spoke softly to each other, and their words, though strange, carried meaning that the watchers could feel in their bones, because they spoke as though the quota was not an end but a beginning, as though the arena was not a prison but a training ground, as though tomorrow was only another step forward. The predators circled from afar but did not strike, and the humans waited calmly, sharpening their weapons and preparing their traps, and when dawn came, the sky above the arena glowed with light, and the ground trembled with the awakening of something vast, something older than the arena itself, something that no challenger had ever defeated without sacrifice. And the council leaned forward in silence, because they knew the breaking point had come not just for the trial, but for the galaxy itself. The ground trembled as dawn spread across the arena, and every tree seemed to shiver, and every stone seemed to shift, because something ancient had awakened beneath the soil, and the humans, who had hunted through forests and deserts and frozen plains, now stood together with their weapons ready, and their eyes sharp, because they knew that the last test was coming, and it would not be like the others. The council chamber fell into silence as the sound of the awakening shook the screens and the floor, and the oldest of the elders leaned back in dread, because they had seen it before, but only from afar, and none who faced it had lived to tell the tale. For this was the beast older than the arena itself, older than the quota itself, a creature born in the first days, when the ancients shaped the trials, and left behind monsters that defied reason. The humans stood at the edge of a clearing, their bodies bruised and marked with blood, yet their stance was firm and steady, and their unity unbroken. And as the earth split open with a roar that made even the sky tremble, the watchers across the galaxy leaned closer, their hearts filled with fear and awe and disbelief. From the ground rose the final predator, a mountain of flesh and bone and steel, its body armored with plates thicker than ships, its claws sharp enough to rend stone, its mouth a cavern of teeth, dripping with fire and poison, and its eyes glowing with the hunger of endless ages. And as it pulled itself into the light, the ground cracked beneath its weight, and the air itself seemed to burn with its breath. The humans did not scatter, and they did not scream. They spread out across the clearing with a calm that no other species had ever shown before, and their leader raised a hand and pointed toward the beast, and in that simple motion the rest moved as one, as if the battle had already been planned before the first roar had sounded. The predator struck with a swipe of its claw that shattered the ground and threw trees into the air like dust, and the shockwave rolled through the clearing with the force of storms. But the humans were already moving, leaping aside, rolling across the dirt, using the broken trees as cover. And as the claw fell again, they struck back with fire, and with steel, and with courage that burned brighter than fear. The council watched in disbelief, because the beast that had ended so many before could not crush these strange beings, who moved like water around its fury, and who struck not with desperation, but with patience and with strategy. And every time the beast turned to crush one, the other struck from behind, and every time it roared in fury, their voices rose in calm commands and steady laughter. The predator bellowed, and the sky shook with the sound, and its tail swept across the clearing, breaking stone and fire, and tearing down everything in its path. But the humans used its size against it, luring it into traps that they had prepared with sharpened stakes hidden beneath the soil, and with fire that burst upward from the ground and scorched its armored hide. The beast stumbled, but it did not fall, its body stronger than mountains, and its will forged in endless ages of hunger. But the humans pressed on, striking again and again, never yielding and never fleeing, and their unity was a weapon sharper than any blade, because when one fell back another stepped forward, and when one was struck another pulled them to their feet, and together they refused to break. Hours passed, and the battle raged across the clearing into the rivers and into the broken hills beyond, and the scoreboard above the arena flashed with every strike, every wound, every moment drawing closer to completion, and the galaxy watched in silence, unable to turn away, unable to believe what they saw, because no species had ever lasted so long against the final predator. No species had ever fought with such endless will. The humans adapted with every strike, changing their tactics with every breath, because when the predator swept with its tail, they climbed onto its back, and when it roared with fire, they blinded its eyes with smoke. And when it leapt into the air to crush them, they scattered, and then swarmed like wolves, tearing at its flanks, and its armor began to crack under the endless storm of their fury. The predator thrashed, and the arena itself shook as if it would collapse. The sky filled with ash, and the rivers boiled with heat, and still the humans fought on, their bodies bloodied, their voices hoarse, but their eyes burning, and their laughter rising above the roar of the beast, and the silence of the council chamber turned to dread, because they knew that the impossible was becoming truth. At last the humans drove the predator into the heart of the clearing, where pits of sharpened stone waited hidden beneath branches and fire, and with one final roar the beast stumbled into the trap, and the humans struck together with fire and steel and fury, until the predator fell with a crash that shook the earth, and the scoreboard above them flashed with the final number. The silence that followed was heavier than any roar, for the final predator lay broken at their feet, and the humans stood above it, their weapons raised not in desperation, but in victory, and the galaxy that had laughed now trembled with fear, because the trial was complete, and the quota had been conquered in days. The council could not speak, and the elders could not breathe, and across the galaxy voices whispered that the humans were not prey, they were not victims, they were hunters and conquerors, and their strength had broken the balance of ages, and no one knew what would come next. The humans gathered around the fallen beast, their faces lit by the fires that still burned around the clearing, and their voices calm and steady as they spoke to each other and to the galaxy watching, though they did not know it, because their every movement told a story that none could ignore, the story of a species that had faced the worst the arena had to offer, and had not only survived, but had triumphed. And as they lifted their weapons toward the sky, the scoreboard above them glowed brighter than ever, declaring completion, and the arena fell silent for the first time in its long, cruel history, because there was nothing left to give and nothing left to take, and the humans had claimed it all. The final predator was dead, and the galaxy would never be the same again. The scoreboard glowed with the final mark, and the arena that had devoured so many challengers before now stood silent, as if stunned by its own defeat, and the humans stood in the center of that silence, their weapons still raised, their breaths heavy, but their eyes steady and calm, and across the galaxy every watcher leaned forward, because they all knew that something greater than the quota itself had just been born. The council chamber was filled with a silence so heavy it felt like stone pressing down on every elder, every scribe, every witness, and no one dared to speak first, because the images on the screens still showed the fallen predator lying broken upon the ground, and the humans standing over it, as if they had always belonged in the place of hunters, not prey, and every old race in the chamber could feel the truth in their bones. The quota had been created as a trial of endurance, not of conquest. It was meant to measure the will of prey, not the mastery of hunters, and for countless ages it had done so, marking who was strong enough to survive the galaxy storms, but never before had it been broken, never before had the trial itself been conquered, and now the humans had done it in days. The elders looked to one another with eyes wide with dread, because they had mocked these beings when their name was first spoken. They had laughed when the gates first opened. They had whispered that the humans would not last even a single night, and now those same elders felt the cold truth rising in their throats. The humans had changed everything, and nothing would ever return to the way it was. The debate began with whispers, one elder saying the humans must be stopped before their strength spreads across the stars, and others saying that it was already too late because the whole galaxy had watched and no memory could be erased, and another saying that perhaps they should be welcomed because to reject them now would mean war with something stronger than the arena itself, and the chamber trembled with the weight of those words. The humans did not know of the whispers, they only knew that their task was finished, and they gathered together at the edge of the arena, their bodies marked with blood and smoke, but their spirits bright and unbroken, and they spoke softly to each other in their strange tongue, and though the council could not understand the words, the meaning was clear, for they smiled, and they laughed, and their eyes looked forward, not backward. The council struggled to form a decision, and their voices rose louder with every moment because one faction said the humans must be declared too dangerous and barred from the circle forever, and another said that to deny them their place after completing the quota would shatter the very laws that bound the galaxy together, and still another said that the quota itself should be ended, for it had been proven meaningless, and that thought filled many with fear. The galaxy beyond the chamber stirred with its own arguments, because entire worlds had watched the trial in silence, and now voices filled the air on ships and stations and planets across the stars, and some called the humans heroes, and others called them monsters, and still others whispered that perhaps they were both at once, and that was the most dangerous thing of all. The elders looked again at the screens and saw the humans marching out of the arena, together, their weapons still in hand, their laughter carrying like thunder, their steps unshaken, and their eyes sharp with purpose, and they knew the decision could not be delayed any longer, because the humans were no longer inside the cage of the trial, they were walking free into the galaxy itself. The chamber filled with votes and counter-votes, with threats and with pleas, and every word carried fear, because none knew what the humans would choose to do now that they had proven their power, and some prayed they would join as allies, while others prayed they would remain far away, but none could deny that the galaxy itself had shifted on its axis. At last the council leader rose and spoke with a voice that carried across the chamber, saying the humans have completed the quota in days. What others took years to achieve, the humans have shown strength and unity beyond measure. The humans cannot be denied their place among us, and yet the humans cannot be allowed to rise without balance and without caution. The chamber shook with voices of protest and agreement, but the decision was recorded and the law was spoken. The humans would be welcomed into the circle of civilizations, but every elder who heard it knew that this was not the end of the trial. It was only the beginning of something larger, something that might one day tear the galaxy apart. The screens showed the humans leaving the arena, their faces calm, their bodies scarred but proud, and the galaxy that had mocked them now fell into silence and fear, because the message was clear: the quota was nothing more than practice. The humans were ready for more, and whatever came next would be far greater than anything the ancients had imagined. The final words of the council echoed through the chamber and across the stars, and every listener felt the same chill, because the words were both a welcome and a warning. The humans have passed the quota. The humans are among us now, and the galaxy must prepare. And as the humans walked out of the arena into the light of a new dawn, one of them turned to the others and spoke softly, and though the council could not understand the language, the meaning was felt in every heart across the stars. This was not the end, this was only the start. The council had decided, but the galaxy knew that the true decision would belong to the humans themselves,